We'll call this meeting to order for the urban renewal meeting. Guys are all ready to go. Roll call, please.
Gary Daigle. Adam Sarnowski is excused. Sean Small here. David Hamilton
Here.
Larry Whitaker
Here.
Michelle Sumner
Here.
and Lisa Woods.
Up to 6:45 minutes. Okay, introduction of media. Do we have any media here? Probably not. Anyone wishing to speak before the agency tonight on any subject matter will need to fill out a speaker form and turn it into the recorder. The forms are available on the back table by the door. Please turn off your cell phones or silence them during the meeting. Announcement for Zoom attendees. If you're joining tonight's meeting via Zoom, you will be automatically muted upon entry, and you'll need to identify yourself if your full name is not already attached to the device being used. You will be unable to unmute yourself. If you wish to speak, use the raise your hand feature. To use it, click on the reactions icon at the bottom of your screen and click on the image of a hand. Public comment. The purpose of this public comment period is to allow citizens to present information or raise issues. A time limit of 3 minutes per citizen shall apply. All citizens must come up to the microphone to speak. Do I have any public comment? Okay, the consent agenda for January 13th, 2025 minutes. I need a motion.
I move that we accept the January 13th, 2025 minutes as presented.
Second? I second. Okay, to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion from anybody? Vote, please.
Gary Daigle.
Aye.
Sean Smalley. Aye. David Hamilton.
Aye.
Larry Whitaker.
Aye.
Michelle Sumner
Aye.
and motion carries.
Agency business, the URA budget calendar approval for 25-26 fiscal year. Staff report, please, Tammy.
Good evening, agency chair and agency members. Tammy Trowbridge, the city finance director, and you have in front of you the proposed budget calendar for our Sutherlin Urban Renewal Agency, which mirrors the dates that the city budget calendar, which you approved last month. The same dates, of course, the meetings are going to be on the same dates, and just we will start with urban renewal and then move into the city business for those things. If you have any questions, let me know.
For nominations?
Oh,
Oh. How about a motion?
What do we need a motion for?
Well,
Yeah, you need a motion to, I'm sorry,
Yeah, to approve.
we're looking for a motion and a motion to
I'm
approve it.
confused here with this.
Make a motion to approve the urban renewal proposed budget calendar for 25-26.
I'll
make that motion.
Laura, you would do the second.
I
You
just
made
did.
the motion, you're doing the second, evidently. Okay. I have a motion second to approve the URA budget calendar for 2025-26 fiscal year as presented. Any discussion? No? Vote.
Gary Daigle.
Aye.
Sean Smalley. Aye. David Hamilton.
Aye.
Larry Whitaker.
Aye.
Michelle Sumner.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now, is this where it should say you are resolution 2025-1? Oregon Revitalization Grant, staff report, community development assistant.
Good evening, Randy Medeiros with Community Development.
Tonight, the Urban Renewal Agency is being asked to support the Organ Revitalization Grant application submitted by STDI for improvements to the Sutherlin Drug and Annex buildings located at the northeast corner of the intersection at Central Avenue and North State Street in the downtown district within the city limits of Sutherlin, and approve the partial match funding and finance reimbursement grant. As part of the Urban Renewal Downtown Development, SPDI would like to request a portion of the 30% match dollars to support the $250,000 organ revitalization application, with the total project cost at $325,000, with $75,000 in match dollars would be contributed from Urban Renewal, SPDI, and property owner injection. Matching funds requested for Urban Renewal would be an amount of $37,075. The grant application will outline proposed improvements, such as a new roof, structural repairs, a drive-through window, new ADA accessible doors with ramps, conjoining of the Sutherlin Drug and Annex buildings, and interior improvements for expansion purposes. Proposed improvements will significantly improve ADA accessibility to the buildings, parking in the downtown district, and will allow for expansion into the vacant Annex building to be occupied with commercial use as permitted, improving economic vitality in the downtown district. As a reimbursement grant, SDI requests the Sutherlin Urban Renewal Agency provide initial funding to be reimbursed by SDI through the grant process. City staff will prepare a memorandum of understanding or an MOU between SDI and Urban Renewal Agency. Resolution UR 20205, UR 2025.01 would authorize the city manager to sign the MOU. City staff does hold board position, have an ex officio board position, and will financial contact on the grant. Your options are to approve the resolution UR 2025.01 authorizing funding request for match dollars, supporting the revitalization grant, and providing initial funding to be reimbursed by SCDI through the grant process, or not to approve the resolution UR 2025.01 authorizing funding request for match dollars, supporting SDI's organ revitalization grant, and providing initial funding to reimbursed through the grant process. The suggested motion is to approve the resolution UR 2025.01 authorizing the funding request for match dollars, supporting SDI's organ revitalization grant, and providing initial funding to be reimbursed by SDI through the grant process via the signed MOU. That was sorry. That was long-winded.
Well,
We gotta still have a motion.
okay, I make a motion that we.
Not you.
We need no nominations on.
No.
So now I need a motion.
Okay. I make a motion, we approve resolution 2025.01.
You are 2025.01. Yes.
Okay.
And I second. And Michelle second. Now question. Go ahead. This is to approve the resolution UR 2025.01 Oregon Revitalization Grant as presented. Discussion, please.
Thank you. Okay, I have two questions. The first question is, I thought that our grant amounts from Urban Renewal were 25,000, and I see this one's 37,000.
So this kind of goes back, so, in 2022, we did this grant, and the grant match was 60,000 at the time. And so the Oregon Main Street grant is separate from our urban renewal, but allowing the opportunity of that grant to, the urban renewal dollars to be the match funds. So this is outside of the scope of our downtown improvements that we've been capping at the 25,000. This is for grant purpose only. However, the, Liberty tax building that was demoed, we authorized, 25,000 approval through that process. So the, negotiations we made with the property owner was, okay, well, if you do this grant, we would still allow that same opportunity of the 60,000, but now that you've spent X dollars on that demolition, then that would deduct from this grant match. So then that way fair across the board, it's the same grant application, and it keeps that vitality improvements going.
Okay, the other thing that I didn't quite understand is where it talks about reimbursement by SDDI through the grant process. What, I don't understand that.
So typically grants are reimbursement, and so the project is done, and similar to what we did with the last revitalization grant, is the city paid the invoices, then when SDI, we submit, because we're the financial contact, so we've been facilitating the entire grant, so then we process that, we pay the bills, then when the reimbursement comes, it comes to the city, we swap checks with SDI, and it's kind
Like
of.
force contract.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
So my question is, is the city only paying the 37,000 and is that what we're being reimbursed? Or is it the 75,000 total match bill?
We would only be paying the 37, the 75 would be, so, SDI, if you guys, some of you that have been around for a while, there was a 13,000, I'll just use the round number, the $13,000 that was for that downtown grant funds opportunity, it was dedicated to that. So those funds would be available for the grant, as well as the 37,000, which is the urban renewal dollars, the balance remaining from what was not spent out of the previous grant. I think it came to 22,000, so the balance of the 25 and 35, so that equals the 37, and then the property owner is responsible for the rest. So we will have those agreements all in place if awarded before any of this gets started.
And so the SDDI reimbursement would be up to 37,000.
The urban renewal dollars is the 37. SDI has 13 and property owner has the balance.
But when they said they're gonna be paying it back, what are they paying back, this 37,000?
Well, we'll pay out the financial obligations and all of it will be reimbursed back. I'm not probably understanding the question, I guess.
How much is being paid back through SDDI? How much is the?
So I think that, so how much is the grant that we're getting from the Main Street program?
So they're gonna apply for 325,000.
325,000. Of that, you have to have $75,000 match. And so between urban renewal, SDDI, and the property owner, they're coming up with the $75,000 match. And then the rest of that, $250,000, will be grant expenditures. City will write the checks for the expenses. The application will be submitted to the Main Street program and they will be reimbursed. But when the check gets here, it's made to SDDI. And so then we swap checks. And they will pay us back out of the grant check that they just got.
So it doesn't really have anything to do with 37,000.
Okay,
That's
the
just,
math.
so we're just
Yeah.
paying that.
right.
And the resolution is to authorize, the application to move forward with this process.
Totally different than what I read out of that.
And how long does the tenant have to make those improvements on the building to satisfy the contract?
I believe the grant is 36 months. So they have 36 months to complete their project.
Okay, and then of the 325,000, they have to come up with 75,000, which in turn is the 250,000 that is grant funded through or reimbursed through SDDI, correct?
So the 75,000 is the match that
Correct.
is being made up of local money. And then the 250,000 is the Main Street
The
match.
match is the matches, that's the property owners.
Property owner, SDDI, and urban renewal.
Okay,
It's
and
between the
so
three.
out of that, 325, is there a capped amount in terms of how much is available through that grant for the improvements? Is there like that leftover monies for other businesses? This is a specific grant application to the Oregon Main Street.
But other Main Street buildings is what I'm referring to.
They would have to apply for their own Main Street grant through,
Okay.
that's the state of Oregon,
It's through the
it's a
state board.
state grant, correct.
Okay.
Which is separate from our other committees to.
Right.
Yeah, correct.
It is the same type of, same program basically that we used for the historic bank building. It was the same kind of grant situation.
Off the subject a little bit, how long does that bank building have to finish their project?
Their project completion is April 30th, 2025.
They have a lot when you do.
A lot of their improvements were internal, you're not gonna see the improvements on the outside. It was like plumbing, sprinklers, roofing, asbestos abatement, so. And bring up the building fund.
But then it can sit empty for as long as.
That's not the intent.
Oh.
They have people in here.
Sorry. Okay.
Any further discussion? Vote please.
Gary Daigle,
Aye.
Sean Smalley,
You know, there's a chance that we might be part of this in the future, so I understand from going on it.
Debbie Hamilton,
Aye.
Larry Whitaker.
Aye.
Michelle Sumner,
Aye.
Lisa Witt,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you. Grant application approvals. 103 West Central Avenue, business relocation, staff report, please.
Good evening, Randy Benares, Community Development Assistant. Tonight, the Urban Renewal Task Force is being asked to approve a grant funding request received for 103 West Central Avenue. The subject lot is located within the downtown area, identified as tax lot 7600 in section 17 BC of Township 25 South, Range 5 West, property ID number R55939. This is the building that's, if you're looking north, it is directly left of the historic bank building. So it's attached to the right next door. So we've received an application for downtown improvements and business relocation to be located at 103 West Central. The applicant has submitted a request for $49,470.73 for interior improvements, including but not limited to flooring, bathroom and kitchen improvements, minor exterior paint, signage, and business relocation to an existing building. The applicant has submitted the site plan, drawing of the proposed signage, cost estimates, planning clearance worksheets, and business registration documentation. Relocation of this business in the downtown district will help foster economic growth while retaining and enhancing the character of the district. At the Urban Renewal Task Force meeting held February 12th, the Urban Renewal Task Force made a recommendation to staff to approve the funding for improvements that are fixed to the structure and intended to be permanent in the amount of $25,000 at 103 West Central Avenue. Your options are to approve the grant application in the amount of $25,000 for interior and exterior improvements affixed to the building and location of the new business into 103 West Central, or to deny the grant application in the amount of $25,000 for interior and exterior improvements affixed to the building. The suggested motion is to approve the grant application in the amount of $25,000 for interior and exterior improvements affixed to the building and location of the new business at 103 West Central. And I believe Sydney is here. If you have any questions, the applicant, Sydney Perkins is here.
We have to wait till we make both motions, don't we? Remember, I got in trouble. I make a motion to approve the grant application in the amount of $25,000 for interior and exterior improvements affixed to the building and location at the new business at 103 West Central Avenue.
I'll start.
I believe the intent is lease with the building owners.
It's the same owners that own the bank building, correct?
Correct.
Which we do have their approval, we require that on our application as well.
They have to sign off on it.
And part of this is relocation, right?
Right.
Where's the business at now?
Believe it's from her home. Do you mind if she comes up and tells you a little bit about her business?
What's your spiel?
We need you up at the microphone.
I'm Sydney Perkins.
So yeah, currently I work out of my home right now. I own exotic events. I mainly just do balloons. So my goal with this building is to make it into a venue space. So it will, people can rent it from me, or they can also rent it and hire my services of balloon or event design. And it'll be versatile.
So, you're not, you really don't have anything in the building that you're selling to the public other than the use of the space if somebody wants to have a party or something, is that it?
For service.
Yeah, my services as well. I will be doing my balloons there.
Oh, you'll be selling balloons.
I'll be selling the service of me putting together extravagant balloon design. So I won't be selling a pack of balloons to people, but
Gotcha.
You guys know the entryways, the 5K runs, and they have the big balloon displays,
Yeah, yeah.
or the wedding, they're the big elaborate, very creative displays.
Okay.
yes. And I've also done the Sasquatch Festival. If any of you have been there, they did a 12-foot tall Sasquatch out of balloons. I've made larger than my octopus before, and so really crazy stuff. Exactly.
Have you, any, thoughts on expanding to other things for parties?
In regards to a building or just my services?
Your services.
Well, event planning, I think, is kind of the cap of that, event planning and the balloon design. With obtaining a building though, it is my goal to expand in that way and maybe have exotic events on Central and then someday on Main in a different city and so on and so forth.
I meant like offering flowers or cakes or anything like that for events. Isn't it your plan to coordinate with other vendors so that you can actually utilize the venue to offer, if someone's gonna do a baby shower, they can have, you plan the whole thing and then add extra things with your contacts so that it's a complete package, correct?
Yeah, correct. I plan to partner with other local businesses and have their services in a premium package or something.
Discussion? Vote please.
Mary Daigle. Aye. Sean Smalley. Aye. Debbie Hamilton.
Aye.
Larry Whitaker.
Aye.
Michelle Sumner.
Aye.
Lisa Woods.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Good luck.
Reports discussion, annual report 2023-24 fiscal year finance director.
Agency members, I'm Agency Chair Tammy Trowbridge, and you will find in your packet the annual report that was prepared for the Urban Renewal Agency, and Elaine Howard does this every year. It is a requirement besides the annual financial report. An Urban Renewal Agency also has to have one of these. We have to notify all of the taxing districts that are impacted by our agency and to the amount that they were impacted for this year. And then also there's a maximum indebtedness tracking for urban renewal agencies. And that's a measure, it's a control measure basically, so you don't indebt yourself as an agency because you have a sunset date that you won't go beyond. So that is in here as well. So it's just an annual report for your information. We had a lot of great things on the horizon. In fact, several things happening first quarter after this fiscal year closed, but we decided instead of talking about those in the next, this is happening, we thought we'd wait and put it all in the current year's annual report. So this one's going to be very exciting with lots of movement and change on Central.
Anyone have anything else? Meeting's adjourned.
All rise, please, for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Roll call.
Counselor Daigle?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Counselor Sarnoski is, excused. Counselor Smalley? Here. Counselor Hamilton?
Here.
Counselor Whitaker?
Here.
Counselor Woods?
Here.
Mayor Summer?
Here. Introduction of media. Any media present? Anyone wishing to speak before city council tonight on any subject matter will need to fill out a speaker form and turn it into the recorder. Forms are available on the signing table in the back of the room. Please turn cell phones off or silence them. What did I press? Announcement for Zoom attendees. If you're joining tonight's meeting via Zoom, you will automatically be muted upon entry, and you'll need to identify yourself if your full name is not already attached to the device being used. You will be unable to unmute yourself. Public comments will only be taken if prior notification was given to the city recorder. Public comment. The purpose of this public comment period is to allow citizens to present information or raise issues regarding agenda items only. There will be time at the end of the meeting for citizens to speak about off-agenda items. A time limit of 3 minutes per citizen shall apply. All citizens must come up to the microphone. Public comment is a time for the council to hear about the thoughts or concerns of the community. It is not a time for a dialogue or a back and forth with the council or city staff. Other than asking possible clarifying questions, neither the council nor staff will typically reply to specific comments or questions raised by members of the public. To the extent a response is necessary, the council will have city staff do their best to do so at or before the next meeting, although such timeframes are not always possible to be met. The council appreciates the time taken by the public to provide comments and desires to hear your thoughts and concerns. However, to be able to run our meeting efficiently and to protect the rights of all involved, the city needs to utilize this time as a period of receiving rather than providing information. Thank you for your understanding. Do we have any public comment tonight? Okay. So we're on to presentations. Do I have Master Officer Kyle Nelson present? And Chief. Well, we're here because I'm being a business, you guys are both really, really tall. We'd like to offer a certificate of appreciation to Kyle Nelson. On behalf of the citizens of Sutherlin, the city council, and city staff, we extend our deepest gratitude for your exceptional commitment to our community, your unwavering dedication to engaging with advocates, acquiring knowledge, and implementing positive changes has significantly impacted our community. It is with great honor that we present this certificate in recognition of the Honorary Advocate Award, which has been bestowed upon you. Thank you so much.
It's an honor to be recognized. Domestic violence is something that I'm passionate about. And working with the advocates has been a pleasure. It's been a really pleasant part of the job. So I'm learning a lot over the past little while. I'm hoping, hoping that I can work with the chief a little bit and hopefully improve all of our response to domestic violence incidents. Just because like I put effort into my job, but I don't feel like I did all that much different. And so it's been a little surprising when just talking to other people, and I think we can all improve. Not that anyone's doing a bad job, but so that's my goal after this. So.
We would have our LOC Finance Workshop, Jenna Jones.
I'm gonna start this Madam Mayor. Hi, Jenna. It's nice to see you. I met her. I was asked by the League of Oregon Cities to go around with Jenna and League of Oregon City staff to do training sessions for councils all across the state. We had first met you in Coos Bay. And she does a great job. The discussion through the city council and budget committee is we really want to hear what the issues are facing local government going forward with finances. And lo and behold, she did a presentation at the League of Oregon Cities annual conference. So Councilor Daigle asked that we do this. We had one previously with the city council budget committee, and I asked the chief has an advisory council, him to bring his group. I asked members of the budget committee, and I see some of you out there, thank you so much. And city council to listen to what Jenna has to say. She has even more insightful information. So Jennifer, I'll turn it over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. And thank you, council, for having me tonight. Do you all want me to share my slides myself, or does someone want to run it in the room? I think I saw a thumbs up. I'll try to share my screen so y'all can.
Either way, I'm trying to get you to be a little louder right now, Jenna.
Okay.
One of the mics over there.
Yeah, let's try that. Jenna, can you stop for a moment?
Huh? Need me to talk?
That's good.
I'm typically a very loud person, so if you're saying that I'm quiet, that is not typically a comment that I get. So hi everyone, my name is Jenna Jones. I'm the tax and finance lobbyist for LOC, which means that I spend a lot of my time talking about property taxes and just finance generally for cities. Oh, let me make sure we're on the right screen. And I once upon a time worked at LOC, and then I left, and now I have come back. So I have a lot of city experience. I used to do telecommunication, broadband cable issues, which is also very ingrained in finance stuff. So I can see on the screen that you can see my PowerPoint. There's my contact information if you have questions after the presentation and you want to get a hold of me. It is legislative session, so please allow for a couple of days in between for me to get back to you. So we'll start off with just a couple of basic facts about property taxes, and we're going to go into bigger scope of municipal revenue sources towards the end of my presentation. But it's good to start with property taxes because they are the primary funding source for cities and other local government entities like school districts, special districts, and counties. And once upon a time, in the 1930s, the state also had a property tax, but they started an income tax and to kind of offset some of their property taxes. And by 1939, the state completely removed themselves from the property tax game, and they were completely offset by income tax. So that is their main funding source versus cities. And for cities, we get about $1.9 billion a year from property taxes across the state. So though this is our number one funding sources, some things pass the voters. And the key thing to note here is that things that pass the voters live in the Constitution. And so it is harder to change them. And one of the principles of some of the reform measures to property taxes being embedded in the Constitution means it takes a lot of local choice away from cities to do something by themselves. There's a couple of options, but they're fairly limited. So in 1990, Measure 5 passed. It was a bill, or it was a ballot measure that limited property tax, established limits for property taxes. So there was a limit for schools that was $5 per $1,000 of real market value, and a limit for $10 per 1,000 real market value for general government taxes. And this is a total of general government taxes, which means this is lumping in your special districts, your counties, and your cities all together as general government taxes. These limits do not apply to bonds. So a lot of people use general obligation bonds to build new infrastructure, new city halls, things like that, police stations. those are not subject to the Measure 5 limits, but any additional operating levies that you pass on top are subject to these limits. And we'll talk about what happens when we hit these limits in a second. And then there was Measure 50, which passed in 1997. This did a lot more damage and kind of in the property tax sphere outside of just capping how much you could levy on people. It created a permanent rate. So if you had a permanent tax rate in 1997, it froze you there and you can never change it. This means that there are some cities who don't take in any property tax revenue because they had zero permanent rate. The next thing it did was it created this assessed value system. So it broke property taxes from real market value, which is what most things are valued on. So it created assessed value that was set at 90% of the value for each property in 1995 and 1996. This also was a time when taxes or assessment on properties was done every 6 years. So there were some folks whose properties didn't actually get reassessed from the 1990s. So they're stuck at that. So any new additions that would have made their assessment go up, those weren't taken into account and they will never be taken into account. And then it limited the growth of assessed value to 3% every year. So we cannot grow more than 3% in our taxes. And then it created a very complicated formula called the change property ratio to bring on new property, which brings new property on by looking at the average county total of assessed value. And typically that comes on around 40 to 60% of what real market value is. So typically it doesn't take into account any big changes over the years, and it is historically been behind real market value significantly. So this is what it looks like for what property taxes do. So this is mostly tied to what Measure 50 did, which the orange line on the bottom is your assessed value. So it's steadily climbing, right? It's not really susceptible to the housing market, to any booms or busts, which is good in theory that, you know, you can insulate yourself. People have reliability and predictability in what they're going to pay. But it also means when we see real market value, which is the top line, which is the blue line, we could be growing so much more when the economy is doing really good. We could keep up with the market and inflation if we grew with real market value. But when we grow just at our 3%, we don't keep up with inflation. We don't keep up with the market. We don't keep up with growth and bringing new people into our communities. And that can really have a drastic impact on the critical services that cities have to provide, like police, fire, having parks and libraries for people to visit. Because typically healthcare costs for city employees, just general raises for unionized workforce grow more than that 3% every year. And you have other needs that are outside of just the personnel costs. Maybe you have infrastructure that you need to fund and what have you. So property taxes grow steadily. They don't do it with growth. And, you know, we would be more susceptible to the housing market crashing. But right now, even when the housing market crashed in the early 2010s, we didn't feel it, and it was still more than what we were growing at from our 1990s values. Oregon is also pretty special. So on the left-hand side, you have the taxes that Oregon charges versus all other states on the right-hand side. And so what we typically talk about in the tax picture is that states usually utilize a three-legged stool. So those three legs are property taxes, income taxes, and a sales tax. And I don't think I have to tell you how unpopular a sales tax is in the state of Oregon. And many people have tried it. We pulled on it recently at the end of 2024. It never pulls well. It doesn't really go well. So that is a core Oregonian value that we do not have a sales tax. But sales taxes in most places is what funds things like transit and education. So we don't have that. So we have property taxes, which I talked about earlier is a local government only funding source. And then we have income taxes. And so income taxes is where the state makes most of their money. They also spend about 40% of their budget on education, because after Measure 5 passed, schools with their $5 per 1,000 real market value really struggled. So the state took on a lot of kind of equalizing the school districts. So they get about 40% of the state general fund. And that's also what pushed the state to do a corporate income tax, or the CAT, the corporate activities tax. It passed in 2019, and a lot of that funding goes to schools. So now we'll kind of talk about the impacts of Measure 5 and Measure 50. We'll start with Measure 5. So what happens when you hit a Measure 5 limit? You may have heard this word before, compression. What is compression? So when you hit your Measure 5 limit, so either the $5 per 1,000 real market value or the 10 across all general government taxing districts, you go into what's called compression. And what happens is compression happens until the taxes are lowered below those limits. And so it starts proportionally across all taxing districts, and it starts with special districts and levies first. And then at the very last moment, it will go to a permanent rate. But typically, it's not going to touch people's permanent rates, which means having lots of special districts around you can, when they're being created, a lot of people throw out compression, and that is a concern. And so it proportionally reduces those. And then it takes into account special districts, levies, anything that's not a general obligation bond. If you want numbers to what compression looked like in fiscal year 23-24, total, it was almost 155 million across taxing districts. Schools suffer the most when it comes to compression. They have almost $70-ish million of compression losses every year. For cities, we have about 182 cities in compression. That can be the whole city or portions of the city, because it all depends on where the taxing districts overlap. So sometimes it's just a portion of your city, sometimes it is citywide, or you have people compressed at different rates because there are more taxing districts that overlap in one part of your city or not. And so for cities, we have 182 cities out of 241 that are in compression, and that loses us almost $50 million a year. And so that's just the Measure 5 losses, right? We haven't even talked Measure 50, and we know it doesn't grow very fast, but just from one ballot measure, this is what we're seeing in today's numbers. So then here are we'll talk about the impacts of Measure 5 and 50, especially Measure 50 now that we've talked about compression, and then we'll kind of see what this looks like in reality to cities as they communicate with LOC and let us know how they're doing financially. So we talked about compression. The next is assessed value does not keep up with rising costs. We know that everything is frozen into 1990s rates, and some of those assessments were not right at the beginning. The same thing goes for permanent rates. Some folks had permanent rates on the books that did not fund a city to what they needed in the 1990s, and that just gets more and more compounded the longer it goes on, right? So maybe in 1990 you had one police officer per 1,000 residents. The national average is 4 police officers per 1,000 residents. So how are you going to make that up when costs continue to rise? You're probably not, and it's unrealistic. And because you had a different permanent rate from your neighboring city, it also has a big impact on what cities next to different cities can provide. And so there's a big disconnect. The next is that properties built at different times pay different taxes. So this is going back to that change property ratio. You'll have something that is built was built prior to 1997. That came on the tax rolls and is frozen there forever. And then any new property that gets added is now coming on at 40 to 60% of real market value. because it's looking at a countywide average and it's not taking into account anything of today. So this happens with businesses, this happens with personal homes as well. And then neighborhoods pay different taxes within a city. So if you had a neighborhood that was super fast growing, very high value homes in the 1990s, those taxes frozen, grow 3% from there. If you had a more depressed neighborhood that wasn't very popular, the houses needed some work, those are locked in to the 1990s values and they grow 3% from there. So essentially, even if the reverse happens where the neighborhood that was really depressed takes off, now they've got really big, nice houses, and the property that was used to be in the best neighborhood is now no longer in the best neighborhood, they will never be similar in the property tax space because one is still going to grow more by percentage wise. That 3%, if it's growing 10% versus 4%, one is only growing at 4%. That 3% equally will keep them apart for the rest of the time under the system. So you see a lot of places where people will start to gentrify neighborhoods that have really low taxes because it used to be a depressed area and now all the business wants to go there. And then that creates a cycle where now this other neighborhood is not doing as well. And again, this applies to residential properties and commercial properties, industrial properties, what have you. So because of all of these impacts, we hear a lot that this is not an adequate system to fund cities long-term. It's pretty inequitable, neighbor to neighbor, property to property, and different property types. And so what does that mean for cities? So we did a survey in 2023, and about a third of our cities were saying that in 2024, they expected to have a budget shortfall, meaning that their expenditures were going to outpace their revenues. And part of this is just a structural problem, right? We can't keep up with rising costs because most people don't get more than a 3% raise every year. And inflation has been pretty insane, and the cost of everything has gone up, particularly after the pandemic. So what are cities doing about that? We hear cities who are trying to maintain their current service levels look to any and all revenue options that might be on the table. Some of that means adding property tax levies if they're not in compression. Some of that means increasing utility charges. Some are adjusting their business license fees, trying to introduce specific fees for a certain service. So like a public safety fee, a transportation utility fee so they can pave roads, or exploring things like, how do I tax short-term rentals? How do I, do an ordinance to pass franchise fees on our cable and telecommunication providers? Or at the end of the day, folks are cutting services and just trying to do more with less, less staff and less money. So when we're looking globally, not just the problems caused by the property tax system, we'll talk about kind of the funding structures of most cities. So, and how that kind of abuts with some of the issues with the property tax system. So most cities have their tax base with property taxes. They get a decent amount of money and revenue from what's called state shared revenues. So there's a few things that we're not allowed to tax, including cigarettes, liquor. We can do a gas tax, but we get a portion of the state highway trust fund as cities. Marijuana, if you have marijuana agencies in your district. And then also 911 taxes. So these state shared revenues, for the ones that go to most cities, which is liquor, highway trust fund, and liquor, highway trust fund, and cigarettes. Sorry, I'm feeling the time change. I don't know if any of you stayed up way too late last night and then also have had a really long Monday, but cities, to get state shared revenues, a lot of them have to certify. So if you live in a county that has a population greater than 100,000, you have to certify every year that you have at least 4 services, right? You have to, out of this list of services. So fire protection, police protection, street construction, maintenance and lighting, sanitary sewers, storm sewers, planning, zoning, subdivision control, or 1 or more utilities. So when we talk about property taxes, typically funds core critical essential services to cities, and that is going down. And you need these services to also get state shared revenues, which are a decent chunk of a city's budget. That kind of creates a problem. So the other option is typically fees. So we'll go into this. I will also say that state shared revenues across the board are declining. You know, less people are drinking alcohol, and the state has a closed liquor system. And that means that they are funding things like an Oregon Liquor Commission warehouse, which takes money off the top of our state shared revenues. So we get less per capita. Same is going with gas taxes and the State Highway Trust Fund. Cars are getting more efficient. People are paying less into that system, and it's getting harder and harder to maintain our roads. And less people are smoking, and there have been new cigarette or tobacco taxes that cities are preempted. So they're not allowed to charge, or they don't get a share of, for things like vaping, based on new ballot measures that have come and been codified in the Constitution. So state share revenues are coming down. We know property taxes are not keeping up where we need to have them and are below our cost of service. So what about fees? Here is a large concept of all of the different things a lot of cities charge. So property taxes, we've talked about that. Income taxes, not super popular, can be a very volatile tax source. Most cities outside of the Portland metro area do not attempt to use it. Then you've got your excise taxes. So that's like if you wanted to do your own local sales tax. Many have tried it. It doesn't usually pass. Or a gas tax or a lodging tax, things like that. And then the bottom, which is where we're going to really focus our time, is kind of these fees for service. So franchise fees, building permit fees, all of those things. So I brought it a little bit bigger, but most people are turning to something within the fees structure. And there's a reason for this. A lot of times a fee, unlike a tax, has to go through city council and can be done by ordinance if your charter allows it. And it's one of those things that city councils can update every year. And for some of them, say like a utility service fee, which we've seen gain in popularity for things like emergency services, public safety, parks, library, and transportation, most cities already have a customer base that they know is within their city and actually their residents with their water system. You do utility billing that way. And so you can do a general service fee for something that the city does on your water bill and knowing that it will only impact residents because you don't want to send out a secondary bill, but it can be an easy administrative way to capture those folks and a way to say, hey, we have this thing we need to pay for, this service that we know benefits everyone in the city. Here is how we can kind of figure out how much it would cost per person, and just a little bit per person helps. So we see typically a lot of cities turning into this utility service fee for very different things. And many of them stay within the realm of $5 to $15, but it spans, and many are finding other ways, both by going to the ballot and working with our communities to really figure out what is necessary and what community members want from the city and what they expect for services. So this is more of if you have free time and you want to dive more into what I just said about kind of the different revenue tools that cities have, LOC produced a revenue tools guidebook at the end of last year. It's 2 parts, and I think both of these parts are really important when you're talking about how to deal with maybe revenue shortfalls or property taxes not being sufficient to fund cities like they used to be. And so the part 1 is about how to create a revenue strategy and how to get, we'll call it voter buy-in, but what that really means is public buy-in, right? Property taxes is incredibly complicated. Most people do not understand it, nor do they want to understand it. But it is something that we in the city world have to get the public to understand if we want to continue to be successful, right? There are problems with it. It doesn't cover everything. And the longer the system is in place, the further it gets away from the reality of the services cities need to provide. And so how do you look at all of the options and different tools and come up with a strategy that fits your city to give the services that you need so that you protect your state shared revenues, so you protect your constituents and the public and are able to continue to grow and have a place that is great to live, work, and play. The second part of that goes into depth on all of those discretionary revenue sources I had up on the screen. So we have a comprehensive catalog of all of the revenue tools that cities across Oregon use. Some of them are more popular, than others. We also have a matrix in weighing kind of the benefit. In the tax and finance world, we use a saying all the time is the juice worth the squeeze? Are you going to have enough revenue and enough support to do what you want? And how long will that sustain you, right? So picking the right tool that is adequate for the length of time that you need it to be. So those are things that you can look into if you really want to deep dive, but I'll leave you on this. Property taxes are hard. They're a reality for a lot of people, but I think the other part of it is that we all need to do a good job of explaining what is the city's job, what is the county's job, what is this random special district's job, and all of us are subject to that Measure 5 cap. So we all have to work together to do the best that we can. But I think that is also one of the things that folks in our communities and the public don't understand, is that different entities and organizations fund different services. And while it all comes out on one tax bill with your county assessor, it goes to different places. And all of those things are necessary to provide essential services. So with that, I will take any questions.
Okay, well, do you want to say something first? Or?
Sorry, thanks, Jenna. You can go
Thank
now.
you so much.
What I did want to introduce is the idea that we're gonna have to do something. And the reason I wanted the three subgroups together is to maybe get 3 counselors, 3 members of the budget committee, and 3 members from the Chiefs Advisory Committee, and go through that comprehensive book of what that she said, that part 2, and come back and bring some recommendations to city council on what we're gonna do, because if not, we're looking at, making cuts.
I do want to thank the, Chief has put together a city funds advisory committee. And I want to thank the advisory committee for showing up tonight here. It's made up of Brandon Sardi, Thomas McIntosh, Mike Mahler, Tara Cristiani, Debbie Hamilton, Lindeen Brown, Sharon Elliott, and Steve Wagner. And so thank you guys all for showing up tonight that are here. And so Chief, do you want to talk a little bit about your advisory committee with that?
Council for Mill Street Police. Yeah, so essentially, knowing what Jenna was talking about, I've been talking with Jerry and the rest of the city, trying to find a way to find some sort of sustainable financing for public safety going down the road here, because as you can see, we're kind of up against the wall. So what I want to do is at least have some sort of transparency with the public, get some good ideas from a group of people on what that fee may look like, or how to implement it, or if there's other options we're missing. So I put together a pretty good group, and got a lot of feedback, and that's what we did.
Great. So from here, do you want any, do you want to give us any information from that group at this point, or do you want to wait and have a part of that group with the other?
Essentially just trying to figure out, some guidance from council on how you want us to proceed going forward. You know, on how you think maybe, an implementation might happen if that's the route you choose to go. If you want to do another work group, I don't know, it's all up to the council, what you all want to do. Keeping in mind that the longer we wait, the more further behind we get.
Right.
And so, you know, we don't want to be acting on this, you know, and putting some huge price tag for our citizens when we're up against the wall. To start early, to start taking some of that pressure off the general fund, which will be hardly noticeable by the citizens when they get to keep the same level of service they've been getting, if not better. But the last thing that is pretty consistent with the work group and a lot of people around the city that I've been talking to is they do not want reduced services. Because as you can see, like even this last month, I think our call volume just for this last month is up 700 more calls this month than last month at the same time. So things aren't getting any slower.
So Debbie, you were on this, work group, and we have, with Debbie, we have a retired police chief, another police chief, assistant city manager, school superintendent, couple people from our, business community, and, a retiree from our Lions. So it's a pretty well-rounded group. Do you feel that you have been able to work closely together to come up with a good, recommendations, or do you feel that you would feel more comfortable having another work group with more counselors and budget committee members? I don't know that that's the right answer, but we've only met once, correct?
Yeah, and then side conversations,
Yeah.
just as I needed information. But I do have Thomas McIntosh here, city manager of Winston. They currently have a public safety fee currently right now. If you want him to come up and kind of explain what kind of feedback he's getting as already having the fee implemented, I'm sure he wouldn't mind answering some questions or kind of laying out how theirs works.
Great, okay.
Thomas, you mind?
Oh, no, that's okay. That's why I'm here. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. So yes, we do have a public safety fee. Just a little quick history for us. We put ours in place in 2019, and one of the reasons, good evening, audience, apologize for not acknowledging you. One of the reasons is our police cars. I mean, there was a lot of duct tape and bungee cord type situations. So we were very antiquated and a little bit negligent for a few years in that regard. And we had a police chief and a really good crew that kind of stood up and got their megaphone ready, and we tried to proceed in addressing that issue. In 19, it was only $3, and it was widely accepted by the public. It was. The citizens of Winston, they didn't want their services decreased either. And then I think it was, I want to say 2.5, 3 years later, we did a 5-year budgetary analysis of our general fund. And we realized based on the raw math, that within a couple of years' time, our general fund looked like it was going to go broke. And of course, the PD being a lot of expenditures, and it's not designed to have a whole lot of revenues. It's designed to keep your city safe. It's designed to provide that type of assurance for your citizens. So that's what you're paying for. And it's worth it. It is by far and away for police and fire. So we felt at that time that we should raise it another $5. One of the things that we had to make sure that was completely clear, because the general fund, all of you know how that operates. The general fund has a mixed bag of different funding. Well, ours, we have our community center and parks, and we have city hall and jail, you know, the courts, all of those things within our general fund. So we had to make sure that once we implemented this, and I'm sure that your city manager is already tracking on this, is that we called out in the ordinance how it's gonna become a dedicated funding source, as to not become swollen up in your general fund. It goes to the PD. The first $3 was for vehicles or equipment associated with vehicles. The second $5 set, which we got literally no public outcry on this. We were just astounded because we thought that we were gonna be packing a room full. Fees are a real gut check. I mean, it's a hard thing to look at fees. The city of Winston is looking at another sewer increase because we've got north of $26 million in deficiencies in sewer pipe in our conveyance system. Not even speaking of the wastewater plant. So fees have been orchestrating around in our community too. And it's a tough subject. But the last two public hearings that we've had, one of the things that's been very clear, at least in our community, is that people are more than willing to pay for public safety. I mean, it's just such an important thing. They don't want those services to go now. So it has been accepted in our community. It's been received with very little outcry and backlash from the community, if it means anything to you folks. So if you're hitting that wall and you're facing that detriment, obviously you'll have an ordinance, you'll go through the public hearing processes, you'll have a platform for the citizens to come out. But it is such an imperative program for us, and a fee that's necessary in a resounding regard. Go ahead, sorry.
I'm just curious, now, you did the $3 and then you added 5, so now you do a total of 8?
We do 8.
Okay,
Yes.
that's good to know, because a lot of times just doing one little bit of it, you're gonna get backlash, so it's good to know that you didn't. But one thing in our meeting too is that Troy came with several cities that have had to implement something like this, and all of them have been pretty favorable, if I remember right.
Yeah, it's amazing how well they're accepted, because they've got folks think in their head, okay, well, we need someone to respond. We need these folks to come out in the event of an emergency, and we want the general assurance. We had to do 3 initially because it was all about police vehicles then for us, and we didn't have the money to pay for them. And then after that, doing the budgetary analysis, looking at our numbers, going purely empirical with it, and staring down those, opening the budget book and thinking, which hill do you want to die on, right? Jerry's shaking his head because he understands the dynamics of that whole thing. I'm sure you do too, Tim. The detriment of that is what it is. So we had to look at, well, how much is going to keep us ahead? And that's why we had to do the just even $5 increase. And we had 2 or 3 people write on their bill, live within your budget. They wrote it on their bill, but we had no one come in. No, there was no backlash. So we were very happy in that regard. But also, we have the assurance as a city that we're making good use of that funding, and we're implementing a fee that's going back into the community to keep us safe. And so I stand by 100% the fee and the program.
I have a question. Are you anticipating an additional fee coming up with the cost of, has the cost of things have increased in recent years?
Not with public safety, only because we have switched. We're just kind of teetering back and forth with that. Well, kind of what Jenna discussed in terms of the detriments in the different areas of the city. On July 1, we're doing a $6 increase to our sewer rate, which is by necessity another gut check. Right. We did a rate study and it shows that we've got some things that are going to fail. After a lot of CCTV, and I'm probably speaking Aaron's language back there. So not with public safety, we're gonna have to take a real hard look at that in the next couple of fiscal years. We have invested some monies into constructing a PD evidence room. So that's kind of the area that we're paying attention to as of now, but eventually we're gonna have to do it again just to keep up with all the things that go up in the community. It's just the nature of the business.
I like the idea that you're putting this into a special fund instead of the general fund. I think that from a public standpoint makes all the sense in the world. Because if it goes in the general fund, who knows where it goes, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Just a strong recommendation. And like I said, Jerry's already tracking on this. He's well seasoned in this regard. I've called him on a couple of matters, and as a side note, just such a tremendous staff you have. I've had personal contact with Christy here, Jerry, Aaron in the back, and the chief, I don't know the rest of you folks, I apologize, but tremendous staff you have. In concert with your point, we put the $3 in, and then we realized, well, we can't subsidize things in the general fund. This is for vehicles. It was for vehicles at the time for us, which, you know, to get a police vehicle fully equipped, all of those things was, you know, 50, 60,000. Now it's clear up north of 80. So they're not cheap. But at that time, we were thinking we need to segregate, make sure this is segregated. So we did an amendment to our ordinance to clearly call out this $3 is for police vehicles or equipment associated with it. The additional $5 is for general police operations. If you have a couple of cars you want to purchase and it goes over, you can use the revenue source from the additional $5. But the initial $3 has to go to the vehicles and the other $5 have to go to general police operations. And the $8 go to the PD. They can't be swollen up. The general fund is just, it's what it is. It's a culmination of a lot of funds. So that was imperative for us. That was just kind of something that we caught. And I'm sure something you're already tracking. Appreciate that. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Happy to help.
I think it would be good then to have another meeting with a group, couple, counselors, maybe some budget committee and your group.
How do you want to do that, Jerry?
Well, I'd like 3 counselors, 3 budget committee members to go in with his group.
Yeah.
And so, I already asked Renee, she's going to do it. And I'd like to ask you to do it. And Mike, right? You're not on the budget committee, but anymore, did you know that?
Yes, I know, I do.
But we welcome you to be the 3rd.
We have another budget committee member.
We do? Where?
Yeah.
Oh,
Two back.
sorry, Mike. So if the 3 of you would be willing to serve with his committee and the council members, here's my not so hidden agenda. I got a budget we have to put together here at the 1st of July. I need to know if we're gonna have additional resources to help keep the police department going, or I'm gonna cut them back in this next budget. That's how bad it is. So I need you guys to get together, identify options, make a recommendation to city council, and have the city council adopt an operating budget so I can include those revenues in our budget.
That goes in May to city council.
Right, it goes to the city council.
Is this something that we have to wait on until May to move forward with? Because like he was saying, the longer we wait.
You could do it tonight if you wanted to, but that wouldn't be, that's.
I'm just
I'm
asking.
saying that's how-
Yeah, I
How
just
soon you
like,
could
I
do it,
don't want to wait 6 months to
Yeah,
do something.
I'll shoot
when
you
we
to
can
do it at the
do
next
something.
council meeting if you wanted.
Gotcha.
What I would like for you to do is whatever you do, work with Bo and Tammy, whatever you decide, and they will craft the ordinance that would come to council to hold the public reading in the first hearing. So it's all on you, chief. If it fails, it's your fault.
Oh, we need a city councilman. You can't.
I can't.
So, no.
Actually, you can, you just can't vote.
Okay. I would like to.
You'd have to recuse yourself from voting. Right, Chad?
Is
Can Lisa Woods, whose husband is a police officer, participate in this group?
So the group and trying to determine additional revenues for the city would not be having a direct or indirect financial impact necessarily on her husband directly. So I think she could participate. She would probably want to declare a potential conflict because it could. You know, again, the differences between a direct conflict and a potential conflict are the words would and could. And so when something could have a impact, that's just a potential conflict. You declare it and you can participate. When it would have a direct impact, that is an actual conflict and you have to declare it and can't participate. At most, I think this is a could situation, in which case you would declare the potential conflict and could participate.
So I'm just trying to figure out who the 3 are then.
And she's already on the committee, so I don't know if we have another one or.
Just as long as you have 3 and not have a quorum.
Okay, So that's three.
Okay, you get that, chief?
And since I have my committee here, is there anybody specifically that wants to volunteer like now? Like, well,
Your whole committee could be on
okay, well, if you want 3 and 3 or
I
however you
don't-
want to divide it up, okay. Committee,
it.
sorry.
With Mike Mahler on it, you're already starting off in the hole. So,
He's pretty tall.
yeah,
Yes, okay, sounds good.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you, chief. Thank you, Tammy. Thanks, Jenna.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Don't, Jenna.
Let's hear this one.
That's gonna be a lot.
I didn't wanna make her feel like she's obligated to stay.
She's
already
out here.
indicated she needs sleep.
Okay, on to consent agenda, February 24th, 2025 minutes. Do I have a motion? Make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Let's vote.
Counselor Daigle,
Okay, yes.
Counselor Smalley.
Aye.
Counselor Hamilton,
Aye.
Counselor Whitaker,
Aye.
Counselor Woods.
Aye.
Mayor Summer.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Under awarding 2025 Parks and Recreation Master Plan, staff report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, Brandon Viveras with Community Development Assistant. City Council is being asked to award the contract, for the 2025 Parks and Recreation Master Plan to Cameron McCarthy Landscape Architecture and Planning in the amount of $99,153 for the planning and development of the 2025 Parks and Recreation Master Plan. It is possible, that we may potentially need to come back to council for an additional cost related to some alternatives based on community engagement and input once we kind of get into that process. The city advertised for the request for proposals for the consulting services to provide the necessary planning services. An invitation for the RFPs was published in December. The city received one proposal in response to the invitation by the January 30th deadline. The scope of the work for the 2025 Parks and Recreation Master Plan includes, but it's not limited to, the review and assessment of existing plans, developing and implementing a public involvement strategy, evaluating policy issues, evaluating the inventory, current conditions and needs of the community, financial planning, development of recommendation, policies and performance measures, and preparation of the final document. Your options are to either award or not to award the contract to Cameron McCarthy Landscape Architecture and Planning in the amount of $99,153. And your suggested motion is to award the contract to Cameron McCarthy Landscape Architecture and Planning in the amount of $99,152 for planning and development of the 2025 Parks and Recreation Master Plan.
I'm just curious, can I ask a question?
I have a motion for,
To make a motion that we award the contract to Cameron McCarthy Landscape Architects and Planning in the amount of $99,153 for the 2025 Parks and Recreation Master Plan.
second. I have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I'm just curious, just because I was here when we did the last one. What was it, what did it cost? I don't remember 100,000 last time.
The last one was about 60.
Was it?
That was 20 years ago. It was 2005. Little events generally last 20 years.
Yeah, because,
So that's pretty normal now.
Well,
Nowadays,
yeah.
unfortunately.
So just once every 20 years we do this?
Especially ones like.
What happens if we don't do it this year?
It can affect grants.
You can,
I mean, we're looking at it-
if we're looking to do it, it would be included in Parks Master Plan, and because it is, you can apply for funding to pay for it. It's not.
That's not city.
Some of the parks have been currently updated or improved, and so now it's to reach back out and figure out what we would do with the remaining parks, or we need to acquire more, how much open space is necessary for the community that we have. And knowing there's a lot of activities going on our current open space, and kind of refining some of that is the, I think, the goal with that. public development.
Then how we pay for this? The grants that pay for this, or?
We've been budgeted.
Or this is the development charges are paying for. Like, they're talking about cuts for the police, and if we start looking elsewhere, like, it's not the best place, not.
Why do we have to pay somebody to give us a plan?
Their time is worth something.
What?
Their time is worth something. It's not,
Well,
it's like.
primarily because without a plan, you can't get grants. So if we want to get grants to do a park, for instance, or do something for the rodeo grounds, and we need to get the grant, we have to have a plan. We have to have a master.
So we've got to pay out $100,000 so we can get more money. Doesn't seem logical.
Charge a lot. I mean, even in 2005, 60,000, that was a lot then.
Yeah, well, the Ford's Pond Master Plan was like 55,000. And that was in 2015, 16, 17. Thank you. Incidentally, I did want to say that the people that were wanting to give the contract to Cameron McCarthy are the ones that did the master plan for Ford's Pond. And they did a great job. And also one of those partners was involved in the original city master plan for parks. So they know us.
They know us, yeah, that's good.
So do you get comparative bids on this, or do you just ask them?
We put it out to bid in essence, and we only got one.
All right, Randall.
Counselor Daigle,
I'm gonna say no.
Counselor Smalley. Counselor Hamilton,
Aye.
Counselor Whitaker,
Aye.
Counselor Woods,
Aye.
Mayor Summer.
Aye.
Motion carries.
On the planning commission appointment, staff report.
Counselor and Mayor, this is Bo Hart, City Recorder. I am asking again, we have one vacancy on the planning commission. We were full, but someone stepped down. So Janelle Wilder, that had previously given an application, said that she would still like to be considered for this role. So we resubmitted her application, and we have the one vacancy with the term ending December 31st, 2028. The options are to approve or deny the suggestion motion to appoint Janelle Wilder to the planning commission. And the suggestion motion is to appoint Janelle Wilder.
Janella here?
I'll make a motion to appoint Janelle Wilder to the planning commission with the term ending December 31st, 2028.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second, any discussion?
When somebody volunteers, they gotta do the job.
Let's vote.
Counselor Daigle,
Aye.
Counselor Smalley, Counselor Hamilton,
Aye.
Counselor Whitaker,
Aye.
Counselor Woods,
Aye.
Mayor Summer.
Aye.
Motion carries.
On the parks committee appointment, staff report.
So we have two vacancies for the Parks Committee with two terms ending December 31st, 2026. The city has received an application for appointment from Rosalind Mock and Rebecca Dennis. The options are to approve or deny the suggestion motion for appointing Rosalind Mock and Rebecca Dennis to the Parks Committee. And the motion, suggestion motion is to appoint Rosalind and Rebecca to those.
Motion.
Make a motion, put them both on the Parks Committee.
Second.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second to appoint Rosalind Mock and Rebecca Dennis with terms ending 12/31/26. Any discussion? Are they here? Is Rosalind or Rebecca here? Vote.
Counselor Daigle,
Aye.
Counselor Smalley, Counselor Hamilton,
Aye.
Counselor Whitaker,
Aye.
Counselor Woods,
Aye.
Mayor Summer.
Aye. Motion carries. On the Seismic CMGM contract amendment for Sutherlin Police. Staff report.
Mayor, Council, Christie Gilbert, Community Development. So this is a process similar to what we did for the fire station. Now for the police station, we awarded the contract in June to S&B James Construction. We would like to amend that contract, so they actually put out for construction bids, and so now this is to award the construction that they're anxiously awaiting to start demolition. And this bid amount would be for the $2,061,617, and it is all within that grant budget. So it's just that next step in the process.
But actually what they have.
Well, you know what happens with these projects, right?
Okay, I have a motion.
I make a motion, we award amendment to the S&D James Construction Master Contract for the Sutherlin Police Department in the amount of $2,061,617.
In a second, any discussion?
Well, I'm glad you said that because I was confused and I almost called you today. Cause I thought, so is this an additional 2 million on top of the 2 million we already got?
This is just the formality of that whole process. So the original, I'm gonna use round numbers, 30,000 that the original contract was for was to be the preliminary design portion where they participated. We brought the contractors in. The CMGC is a different process than our design bid build that we typically use. So for these, we bring the contractors in to help design it. And so then that was the first, now we're just amending the same contract to allow for the construction because that initial bid allowed them to put out their own bids to the independent contractors. So they had 37 bids that they received, and then they vetted with the engineers. And so then we worked with them on picking those contractors, and we just amend that main contract for this.
Well, that's awesome, because I looked at that and I thought, no way is it less.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
I
and
saw that
so
they
when
were
you add all of the other fees in, it pretty much comes close, with the original budget, but then there's also the relocating fees and some of these others that get involved, so.
So I read it as they originally got the bid of 22,479,000, but then they redid it, now it's 2,061,000.
Yeah, that's how I took it.
So there's, so their original, I'm gonna say 30,000, we're amending it for this, but then there's other fees, so the grant cannot exceed that 2.4. That was the total grant award amount.
Okay.
And so these are specific to S&P's contract.
Well, and I think that you're right, that it was refined. Their number was refined because the initial number that they started with was, okay, we're starting up here, but we're gonna do a lot of refining on these bids as we get the bids in from the contractors. There's some of these things, we took the builder's risk insurance out. There's several pieces that have been negotiated through that.
And the 2.4 was the total grant dollar award.
Okay,
not-
got it. Okay, that makes sense now, okay.
Before we vote, can I ask Chad if it's conflict that I vote on this?
What would the basis for the conflict be?
My husband works for the PD,
And this is,
Yes,
and it's for the PD.
yeah, so again, in order for there to be a conflict, there has to be a financial impact on either you or your relatives. And so since there's no financial impact, you know, if your husband worked for the construction company, that would be a financial conflict. But here,
Understood.
because there's no financial impact on him, it would not create any sort of conflict for you.
I just want to make sure.
Yep, thanks for checking.
all right, any further discussion? Okay, let's vote.
Counselor Bagel,
Aye.
Counselor Smalling. Aye. Counselor Hamilton,
Aye.
Counselor Whitaker,
Aye.
Counselor Woods,
Hi.
Mayor Summer.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, on to business license update. Lit,
Mayor, council members, Pat Lynch,
I thought I would provide this information for you tonight, not asking for a decision, but for some of your time between now and the next meeting to review this information, because there's some decision points. I think the consensus of the council was that we do want to proceed with business licensing, but if it were that simple, it'd be great, and we could just do that tonight. But there are a number of traps in this that we want to try to avoid. Clearly, in our research, we found that there are cities, as was discussed earlier, that are using business licensing as a point of revenue to fund other issues. I don't think anyone on the committee that met and the discussions we've had and anything that was said in council indicates that we want to use this as a revenue source. So we do want to keep the business license fee as low as possible. One of the larger cities starts at $500 for a business license fee, and we're looking at maybe $50 or $100. We need to decide how wide we want to spread the lasso on this, whether we want to try to connect with every business that's operating in the city limits, or whether we're looking just at commercial enterprises. And I think we need to probably go as far as to try to connect with home-based businesses even, because that is concern in some of our neighborhoods when they have, commercial enterprises running out of a home, and it can create some problems. We're not recommending any special industry fees. Again, I think, for different services and manufacturers and different kinds of businesses, a different fee structure. I think, again, that's to generate revenue, trying to collect additional funds from those that appear to have the ability to pay, and I'm not sure we want to go there. One of the big decisions, and we talked about this 2 meetings ago, is whether we want to look at background checks. There are a number of cities that do background checks on all business applicants, and I think the chief of police could speak to why that might be more important for public safety than I will, but it is a decider. There are folks that think that's too invasive. Those that have nothing that they're concerned about don't think it's too invasive, but I'm sure that those that have a background that might be questionable would. Some people think it's just too invasive, period. And I'm not necessarily agreeing or disagreeing, but that's a decision the council will have to make. And it wouldn't have a financial impact because there's a cost for that, at least the first time around. It's not huge, but we might want to go to $100 instead of $50 to make sure that that's covered. There are also other provisions that we've talked about. And we have an application that Jamie was nice enough to do a draft on that I don't think it's too onerous, and you can look at that too. And at this point, I just thought I would ask you how you would like to proceed. We looked at originally at maybe a May date for a vote on how to proceed with this. We've got some intervening time. If you'd like to, those that were assigned to the committee to meet again and make a concrete proposal, then I think the big decision point now, if you could just to get a consensus, would be, do we want to talk about background checks, or do we want to just do business licensing and not get into that realm? I think what's interesting is that when businesses come to town and they rent a building, they generally all have to go through background checks to make sure they pay their bills.
Well, and we've had a business come here years ago because Grossberg did a check, and so we got,
Right.
still got them. They don't know a whole lot.
If we do a background check, it implies that we're gonna reject an application for something in somebody's background. So that means that we have to come up with a list of things that we wouldn't accept for an individual to be in business in our city. And personally, I'm opposed to a background check. I've talked to several people who don't like the idea at all, and there are people that really don't have anything to hide. They just feel like it's an invasion of privacy.
I don't think that I think we should have a background check. I think we should, because we need to make sure that we can keep our citizens safe. And by having a background check and ruling out those individuals that may
pose a potential problem with that. It's not that the people that don't deserve a second chance, but going over what those things may or may not be is something we could add into their acceptable things.
Simple business isn't gonna argue about background.
Correct.
Be of some sort. They're gonna be
I have
happy
to
to
go
pay
through
it,
background checks for mine.
no, everybody else around them is all a credible business also.
Every volunteer at the library has to be background checked before they can even check a book out or something.
Yeah.
So,
And we don't need like 20 years of taxes or nothing, just a simple background check to make sure they're legit.
it's a further complication, so it definitely needs to be a decision of the council. And if your consensus is that we want to go ahead with that, then we certainly can, but that's going to be your decision.
I think that there is some complexity to that, as you said, is like, where are we going to draw the line of what types of crimes or what
Maybe Troy can add to that.
what we look for in that.
Very common.
And I don't know if for these types of background checks, what do they send you?
Well, I don't think we need to recreate the wheel either. Other cities are already doing this. They've already had a vetted process. So, you know, if this is something we want to move forward on, I suggest, you know, coming up with some of those vetted processes, let us take a look at it, see what's gonna be the best, bring it back to you.
Right.
And go that route versus trying to recreate the wheel.
That's right.
All of our background checks at the library, as an example, go through the school district. We never see the results. And I've only had one that ever came back with anything on it that was of concern, and that was taken care of, so you just need to tell us how to move forward, and we can kind of codify this and perfect the application, and if you're interested, we can then bring it back at the next council meeting for your review.
I think it sounds like the majority of people would like that, so it might be the best to contact a couple other cities that do them and find out their procedures for doing.
Very simple to do.
Well, you know, give us a chance to read this stuff.
Yeah.
Right, and I would like all of you to look through this material and see if there's anything that we find objectionable, and we can talk about that at the next meeting too. But I wanted just to get this into your hands and give you some time to look over it.
Great.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pat, will you be reaching out to set another meeting so we can discuss these things further or for further input, or are you just gonna take it from here?
No, I think we'll have another meeting. I'll try to collect dates that work, and we'll set something up as soon as possible so that we can review it too and be prepared to act.
Okay, thank you.
We didn't let businesses do this before we put this in effect.
That's certainly up to the council. I mean, this could be put out on the website if you want for public review, or you can have a meeting. That's not my decision. That's certainly up to you.
Well, I'd like to know how the businesses feel about it.
There's a lot of cities that don't get a choice, so you go and you don't have a business.
Well, I'm a business and I'm totally for it, so this is my input.
Well, I'm a business, I'm not, so there.
How about you, Mr. Smalley?
I'm all for it. Then how do we decide on the businesses that are already here? Might be an issue too.
Well, you wouldn't have to do a background on the ones that are already established.
Why not?
I think it'd have to be
You've got
fair
an
across the
application,
board.
that's part of the application process. I would hazard a guess that it's going to be a very, very, very small problem.
Aren't
If
most
it is
of them
one.
already signed up?
No, we have no process in
We had
place.
that kind of open
There's
ended registration process that probably captured 10 or 15% of the businesses, but this is a license.
I think by having a business license within our city, it's really going to help us determine what businesses are in our city. Like we have a new drink place that's popping up, which is great, but does anyone really know about it? No one knows anything. Does the city know about it? Apparently there's a new restaurant that's coming into town
guys know
too.
about
Do you guys know about that one?
Yes, but we don't know about this.
Six.
We know about six.
No, there's
There's
supposed,
another one that we don't know.
there's
about.
another restaurant that's supposed to be coming in the next couple of months. Does anyone know about that one? I mean, there's just all these businesses that pop up and we have no information.
So we will meet and have a presentable application with notes for the next meeting.
Okay.
So that one is down by Young's.
Right next door. They've done a nice job of cleaning it up.
I just want to say one other thing is, I don't think we should look for a problem that we don't have either. I mean, there may be things that are issues and I grant that, but let's not anticipate we having a problem, something we don't have a problem with. And I just mean that in a general sense, not specifically on it.
Keep it separate.
Yes.
Keep it separate.
Exactly.
Okay, on to executive recruiting proposals. For your recorder.
All right, Mayor and councilors, we received 5 proposals, back from the executive recruitment firms. And so what the mayor has asked is that we send out the 5 proposals and a scoring sheet to each of you to review through, score them, and then get them back to us. And then what we'll do is take the top 3, scored firms and then, go over those and do background, or not background checks, the reference checks with them. And then come up with the top one from those. So we're gonna send out the scoring sheets and the proposals by the end of the week to your emails. If you guys need them printed out, you can stop by and get those to you as well. And if you have any questions or anything on the scoring or anything else, feel free to reach out to us.
And it will be Bo doing the reference checks. So that, him and I will be the ones.
So what is this for?
For the firm the recruiting firm.
For the
The
city.
recruiting firm.
Okay.
Yes. This is the only part that's just gonna be this quick, just to get the firm. Anybody have any comments, questions, discussion on that? Anybody good with that? All right. Appreciate that. And the city manager report. Council comments. Remember, monthly meeting time is limited. Please ask questions or make statements that are likely to benefit the group. Individual comments and questions that can be handled on a one-on-one basis should be handled outside the meeting. Councilor Daigle.
Well, I have a question regarding the meeting about the Oak Street Commons. Are all of us allowed to go to that, or is it gonna be like before? You can only have 3.
Would you like to go?
Yeah, I do want to go.
Okay, you can be one of them.
But I don't think we should have to exclude anybody. Well, that's that.
I'm okay with, letting you go for it.
I don't think you can now. He's told us before now. Well, these are our constituents, it's like people who represent. I want to hear what they have to think about it. But I think we all should hear that.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Chad, for the town meeting, it's an advertised town meeting. Are we all able to be there or not? Or is that considered a quorum for all of us?
You can all be there, you just have to notice it as a meeting of the council, not just a town meeting. So you may have to amend and update the notice to make sure that it complies with the public meeting laws and has all the required information. But once you've done that, you can all attend, even if you're not gonna conduct it like a normal council meeting, if that makes sense.
All right,
Well, that's good, Chad. I think that's all I have.
okay. Councilor Smalley.
Congrats to Officer Nelson.
Yes.
Pretty awesome. He's already done.
Already done.
That's all I got.
Councilor Hamilton.
Congrats to Kyle. He's a good guy and that's great. I've had a couple people contact me about the flyer. I haven't seen it. I didn't get one in the mail. And they're confused. They thought it was already built. One of them.
Perfect. Let's do it.
No, one person.
How's it going?
Anyway, I said, well, just make sure you go to the meeting, ask your questions. But
We're
in
gonna have the whole group there, all the I sector folks. Including Hayden Known,
that's good.
because we want to be able to answer every question that's possible.
Anyway, that's all I have.
Councilor President Whitaker.
Bo's probably the one that can answer this, but somebody asked me about why we don't have our city council meetings available on MP3. Because I think they're available online with Windows service, but sometimes people might want to listen to it on their telephone or other places.
Yeah, so you can, but what we did was reach out to the IT department and they advised against doing that. But if people wanted to do that, there is converters and they can do it on their own if they chose to do that, but, that's what our IT department.
Why would the IT department say that?
Because MP3s are a different format and they have different issues that can come about with them. They mentioned that MP3s are not as, yeah, it's an older technology. And can be manipulated differently. But we do have different ways that we have our YouTube video that you could play, you can convert those other ones if you chose to.
Well, I guess the other thing is that if you have a telephone, you should probably have your city website on there, or they can listen to it that way.
Yeah, they can still download it themselves and put it into whatever format they
So,
want.
but anyway, the IT people said that it's not a good idea.
They advised against it.
Okay. That's it.
Councilor Woods.
I just wanted to say that I'm seeing a lot more notifications through like the city on Facebook, updating for, our meetings and things, which is really great. So someone's doing a really fabulous job there. Also a reminder on the 13th, which is Thursday, the blood drive that's happening at the Civic Center for police and fire versus. So, just a reminder to go get some blood, save a life. That's it.
And congratulations to Kyle as well. And also, there's still a few baskets left to purchase for any businesses or people for the beautification of our downtown, Central Avenue.
Flower basket for me,
Huh?
sponsorship for the flower basket.
Yes, $125 to get your name on one of the banners. It's a really great advertisement and they're beautiful down there, so. We still have, I think there are still some available left, right?
Yes.
Who can we give the talk to? Lindsay right
And
there.
James of Brain Trust, is he still here?
Here, Laura.
Or Laura right there. Laura will take it as well. Yes. So I think I just sold you one. So I think that's it for tonight. Yes. So last part of business is public comment. Purpose of public comment is to allow citizens to present information regarding items off the agenda. A time limit of 3 minutes per citizen shall apply. Any off agenda? Nope. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Oh, wait, Mike. Not even one money yet.
Well, use my people, I probably don't have to.
Yes, you have to.
Councilmember Mike Muller, past city employee, third state employee, and I live just outside of town. I've just been meaning to stop in, and now that I was part of this group and, with Chief Mills when I got in here, I just wanted to say, my wife and I over the last few years have really seen the direction of the city going in a great way, like the festivals you have, the music in the park, the new barbecue festival they got going is just, for a 2-year event, is absolutely amazing. We have people coming in this year from out of town just for that event. I just think the things that are going on are absolutely wonderful. So anyway, I would say doing a good job. The parks always look good, and we walk out of Forest Pond all the time. And if I keep a little puppy out of the water, it's great. So anyway, keep up the good work.
How many days till retirement?
Right. Also, if anybody wants to hear stories about somebody in the back of my patrol car, if he was a cadet when I was working, hit me up when I'm not on a microphone.
Mike,
Mike.
Mike, if you are out at Ford's Pond and your dog is swimming in the pond, is he on a leash?
Usually, I'm just trying not to swim with him.
Okay.
He's a 1-year-old lab. It's hard to keep him out of water.
Thank you. Okay,
Good to see you, Mike.
adjourn.